Hi there and welcome to my channel. I'm Jennifer. This is A Country Life, and today, see you later, Peter. Bye. And today I have tomatoes, and tomatoes. So if I understand correctly, tomato passata is kind of like a tomato sauce. You can season it up kind of any which way that you might want to, or just leave it plain. But instead of cooking it down to get all of the liquid off, you're really just cooking it until you kind of separate the solids from the liquids. Kind of just cook it enough just to get the liquids out, and then run it through the food mill. Normally when I'm making like tomato juice, I just cook it down kind of that same amount of time, and then I run all of it through the food mill just to get the skins and seeds out. I leave all the liquid in there, and it's basically a pulpy tomato juice. I use that as my base for chili, hug and kiss soup. So today I thought I'd give this a try. I also want to do salsa. So someplace over there I have a colander. I have that already chopped with peppers from the garden and jalapenos. Our jalapeno plants did very, very poorly this year. Last year I had a lot of jalapenos. I think that was last year, or was that the year before? Anyway, I didn't plant as many because I thought I had so many, I didn't know what to do with them all. And now this year I think we got 7 jalapenos in total. So I don't have a whole lot, but I think I might be able to grab some from the freezer from last year, a bunch that I froze, and get that going with the salsa. So let's just get to it here. Basically, so I just have this bowl of water here so that I can be rinsing the tomatoes as I go along, just to wash them. And let me just say, there is no right or wrong knife to get the job done. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to use a chef knife or you have to use some kind of knife. Just use what's comfortable for you. This has been a favorite here now, well, probably ever since I got this one. This is a Rata cutlery knife I did not have for a long, long time. And I always loved the boning knife, which is this knife here. So measure them up. The boning one is quite a bit longer. I always like this one. This has a weaker tip at the very end because it's for, real fine, trying to get that, sliding it between the meat and the bone or whatever. But I use this a lot too. Had some complaints from viewers that this was the wrong knife, but that's okay. That's okay. I like this one a lot. But this one, this is the Super Parer, and I really like this one. It has a really, I am making a mess here. It has a really stout handle, and I like that. That's it. I guess I am just going to, and I have too much water in my bowl. I am just going to quarter my tomatoes. Now, it probably would be best to only be using a Roma, a paste, a San Marano type of tomato, but I don't have enough of any of those. So I'm going to be using my Wisconsin 55s, as well as, what else do I have here? I also have some celebrities. And that is a really pretty, even though it's lumpy, it's a very pretty tomato, very brightly colored. Any spots where the tomato might have split, I just cut that part off, or if there's like a funny little hole or something. So this here tomato is a San Marano, and it's kind of like a Roma or a paste tomato. It's a little more elongated and does have like that little extra kind of curve. Let me see if I can, there's another one, a little extra curve to it. These are a really good paste tomato. When I cut into it, it's not super juicy. It makes for a great saucing tomato. Okay, at this point, I'm going to add just about a half a cup of water just so that it doesn't scorch, and I'm going to turn this onto a medium-high heat, and I'm going to stir this at least every 5 minutes. Getting out another smaller stock pot. These small tomatoes are my Wisconsin 55s. I've never grown that variety before, so I'm not 100% sure if they're always small like that or if that's just mine due to lack of soil nutrition. I'm really unsure. Next up, I would like to start working on salsa. And I was just looking at the tomatoes that I just brought in this morning, and although they look very, very, I think they look really good through the camera here, they just don't look quite ripe enough. I'd like to let these ripen up for a couple more days before I actually use those. So earlier, either this week or late last week, I did puree up 12.5 cups of tomatoes here because nothing else was ready yet. The peppers weren't ready. I wasn't ready to be making salsa, and I just put those in the freezer. So what I'm going to do is get those. I'm just going to cut that bag right off of it, get it put into this pot here because I added the tomatoes that were in this pot. I added them over to this pot here. So, and I just kind of been stirring about every 5 minutes. It's probably more like 3 to 5. And since I have 12.5 cups, that is actually 1.5. It's like a 1.5 batch of this. So what I'll do is just get the tomatoes on low so that they can start warming. And I'm just going to start prepping everything else. The onions, so it's going to be 3 cups of onions. I'm going to want about anywhere from 4 to 4.5 cups of green pepper. I'm going to want anywhere from about 2 cups or so of jalapenos, my vinegar, my salt. I'm just going to get everything else going. I'm hoping that's all going to fit into this pot so that I can get that all cooked down. So I just got back into the house here, and oh, Maria, you are the most adorable little girl ever. Just sweeping away, doing her housework. Very, very sweet. And what happened and why I ended up out of the house having to turn everything off here for a few minutes is that Peter was out weed whacking down in the marsh. He had to go get Warren to get more string for the weed whacker. And he was coming around a corner on the four-wheeler and his thumb, well, he didn't really know what happened. Anyway, the four-wheeler shut off. And he was like, oh, he didn't know if he was out of gas or what the deal was. And so rather than investigate for a couple minutes, he booked it home. He got me, then I hopped in the UTV. But what I have to say about all of this is that it's pretty heartwarming when your 11-year-old son comes to you, the mom, asking for help with the four-wheeler. Because sometimes I feel like maybe he would know more about the four-wheeler than me, but apparently he thinks that I've got it all figured out. So anyway, we went down there and I was like, hey, what about the emergency turn-off switch or whatever it's called? And sure enough, he had hit that with his thumb. So he's all back into action down there and everything is going well in the house. I turned off the tomatoes here so you can see how it's like we've got the solids here and then we also have all the liquid here. And so what is going to happen is I am going to just kind of like lift out all of the solids, and that is what I'm going to run through my food mill, and then the remaining liquid there, that's basically tomato juice. So I will can that up as tomato juice. I have done something similar to this before where I've cooked it for a long, long time in my big Nesco roaster, and that gets very dark. So the juice ends up being very dark instead of a bright red. Still tastes good. It just looks a little bit different than what we are used to. Okay, I turned this one back on. This is the tomatoes that were frozen. Still have that just kind of on a, I would call that on medium heat right now. And I just set up my food processor over here. I'm going to start zipping the peppers. And, oh, I need to get onions. I'm going to have to get those from down at the garden. So when you're making salsa, you do not have to kind of blend it up the way I do like this, where I, cut it into really tiny chunks. If you like a real chunky salsa, I mean, cut it into half-inch pieces. That's fine too. Okay, we like salsa any which way. We like it chunky, where it's cut into chunks, but quite honestly, that just takes too long for me. I'd rather just zip, zip, zip and have it kind of, I don't know if I'd call it even minced, but this is definitely in between minced and diced. And then we also like salsa, you just cook everything down. You don't even have to really cut it very much. Like the peppers, just cut in quarters. And you just cook everything, the onions, all of it, and then just run it right through the food mill, like what I'm going to do with the tomatoes over there for the tomato passata. And then you get a little bit more of like what they might call restaurant style. I think that's what they call it, right? Restaurant style, where it's more of just kind of like a pureed blend. There's no real chunks in it at all. So basically just do it the way your family wants you to do it. What will they eat? And that's what you want to make. So let me measure this up. So this is 2 and that was 2. So I have about 4 cups, and that is just what I want for the green peppers. I'm going to get some jalapenos out of the freezer. I did mix the jalapenos that I had. My 7 little 1.5 inch jalapenos, those also got mixed in here. So I'm going to add some jalapenos, go down, get the onions, and just let it all cook down. At this point, I'm going to add in the vinegar, which is 3/4 cup plus half of 3/4. So I'm just going to fill this. Oh, you can't even see. I'm just going to fill this up halfway. I'm going to get all the spices into here. So I need 1.5 tablespoons of salt, garlic powder. I need 1 teaspoon of garlic powder plus a half. For sugar, I need 1 tablespoon of sugar plus a half. Same for chili powder, 1 tablespoon plus a half. 1/4 teaspoon of cumin plus 1/8. 1 teaspoon of black pepper plus a half. And so this is my seasoning mixture. I'm going to get all of that put in there. And then I just always like to look over my recipe: tomatoes, onions, green peppers, jalapenos, vinegar, salt, garlic powder, sugar, chili powder, cumin, and black pepper. So let's get all of that in there. Give it a little stir. And I'm going to bring this up to a little bit more of a simmer. I mean, the tomato hunk, there's just that much more tomato right there, and that needs to thaw. And then I'm just going to work at cooking this down until it's the thickness that we want. It could take 2 hours at a simmer. It could take a little bit longer, but just keep stirring it every 15 minutes or so until it gets to the thickness that you like. And keep it uncovered so that the liquid can evaporate away. All right, my tomatoes over here are set. I'm going to get my jars ready, and then we're going to start running this through. No, I'll just run it through the food mill first. All right, you guys hear the music? Joe is clubbing it again today. So anyway, you guys have seen this a lot. I use this contraption here. It is a food strainer. Mine specifically is the Back to Basics brand. And if I look on here carefully, I actually got this at a health food store for $58.99, and I've probably had this for at least 20 years, possibly even longer. I have to remember that I have been married now. This December it is going to be 27 years. Is that right? So Emily will turn 26 in September, and then we will have our 27th anniversary. Yeah, because she was, let's see, we got married December 7th, and then she was born September 25th. So like 10 months or something later. What I'm trying to say here, though, is that I find that I'm like, oh, I've had this for 15 years, or oh, I've had this for this long. And then when I actually stop and think about it, I'm like, wait a minute. Emily is going to turn 26 in just about a month. And I know that she was just a little girl. Like the first time I ever used one of these, she was in a backpack on my back. That's how I would can when I had little kids. The very And the first time that was actually at a friend's. We compiled all of our apples together and made applesauce at her place. I didn't really know how to do it or anything, and so yes, it was perfect. Just bring my, she would have been like almost 1, so that would have been like 1998. So all right, a little history there for you guys. But anyway, I've had this for a long time, and I have to catch myself saying things like how long I've had things, because I just keep getting older and older, and I keep having things for more and more and more time. Well, this is so easy to use. I'm just going to dump all the tomatoes in here, and then what comes out here is going to be the pulp, the sauce, and then there's an auger inside of here. It pushes all of it through. The sauce comes this way, and the skins and seeds come out there. Now, remember, I'm making tomatoes or tomato passata or tomatoes passata. I'm not sure if which direction I'm supposed to say it, but I have to kind of lift the, I'm not going to be dumping the whole thing in here like I would normally do for juice, because I'm trying to get this more saucy than juicy. And I have this big wide slotted spoon. This is going to work great for this. Let me see. I feel like I need to get this over here so I'm not lifting it so far. And why don't I put you guys up on the tripod? It might be easier for you to see this whole get up. Trying to get some of the liquid off. And you can push it down a little bit just to make sure that the tomatoes are getting down to the auger. All right, at this point, I have my bowl of thin sauce. It's a little thinner than I would have liked it to be, but I think it's because I didn't have just Roma's or San Marano's. I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt into each jar. I am going to put a teaspoon of sugar into each jar, and a teaspoon of garlic into each jar. As well as a tablespoon of lemon juice. The lemon juice is just to be sure that there's plenty of acid. I know tomatoes are a high acid product, but it is always recommended to add some lemon juice or vinegar just to be sure that you have them. See what I'm saying? It's a little thinner than I would have liked. It's not going to be a problem though, because let's say I use this as like a spaghetti sauce. I will most likely add to it other ingredients. I will add to it ground meat, most likely venison. If you are new to canning, I highly, highly recommend you either get the Kerr Home Canning and Freezing book or the Ball Blue book of Home Canning and Freezing. Very, very important. Has so much information in there. This is just an invaluable resource. All right, a 1/2 inch headspace is what is recommended in there for tomato products. Even though this jar is not full, I am going to can it. I will put this right towards the front and make sure that this is the first one that I use up. And you have to just kind of decide for yourself by doing your own research if you feel comfortable with that or not. I do feel comfortable. I've been canning this way for a long, long time, and it's always worked for me. All right, so we're just going to put some vinegar, wipe the rims with vinegar, put on our lids, put on the rings, just fingertip tight. You don't have to crank them way down. And I'm going to set these aside. All right, and since I want to can up the rest of this here juice, I'm just going to run that through my sieve. There must be more thickness in there than I thought. So we're just going to kind of push it through. As you can see, this is not a super fast process. It does take some time. You do have to put a little love into it, that's for sure. And so you can see this is going to be a lot thinner. This is truly a tomato juice here without any pulp. All right, with the tomato juice, we're going to also, we're going to bring up the acid. I'm not going to add any salt or anything to this. I just realized that when I made some blueberry jelly jam, which is like jam that I run through my food mill, I made that. I have a video on that probably like early-ish August. That video popped out. If I remember, I'll link it in the description below. But anyway, in there I used a cookie sheet lined with either paper towels, I think lined with paper towels, to save all the spills, because I am a very messy canner, as you can see. I forgot to do that this time. And I think that time I was like, oh, I will never not do that, because it was such a smart idea. I got that idea from Bucket List Homestead, and I wish I would have remembered today, because I really have a mess. Make that dessert. So with salsa, there is no need to add any extra lemon juice because you've already put the vinegar into the salsa, so it's plenty acidic. Sometimes I get so excited I forget to stop pouring it in. I always like to have extra jars prepped and ready to go, because you just never know. Sometimes you think you're going to get, 6 pints and you end up with 7, and it's just nice to have them ready so you don't find yourself having to zip down to the basement, bring them up, scrub them, all of that when you're right in the middle of filling. That's hot. At this point now, I'm actually going to have to walk away from this for a little while, because we do have our back to family faith formation tonight. So I'm just going to leave everything. I'm going to leave everything just right where it is, and then late tonight when we get home, I will start canning this up. It shouldn't take too long. Once I get that filled with water and I bring that to a boil, passata and juice has to go for 40 minutes. So that is going to take some time there, but you know what? I can probably work on editing a video or something. And then when that comes out, I will put the salsa in the pints, and that only has to go for 15 minutes. All right, we are back home, and I am getting set here to water bath can, and I just wanted to share with you that you do not have to have a true, what we would call, water bath canner. You can water bath can in anything that you can get an inch of water over the top of your jars. You just don't want your jars to sit on the bottom. I've seen people use like a cloth, like a washcloth, just put it on the bottom and then fill it up with water. I usually tend to just use canning rings. I just kind of put them down there, making a little base, and then I set them on top. I have some more canning rings in this one here, and I'm just going to get these filled up, get the covers on them, bring them to a boil, and then they do have to go, well, these two are salsa, so 15 minutes at just a very low boil. You can have the cover on, you can have the cover just kind of ajar a little bit. Either is fine. The tomato passata as well as the juice has to go for 40 minutes over on this side, and yeah, I'm just got it on high heat. We're gonna get those boiling up, and while everything comes to a boil, I'm gonna work on dishes. All right, at this point now I just set my timer for 40 minutes because the water bath canner is at a like slow boil. You know, it's not splashing all over. You don't want it to be splashing all over and, you know, that kind of thing, but just a nice kind of low boil. It looks like this one just started to low boil as well, so I'm going to get that one turned down. And then we're going to wait for that one. These two only have to go for 15 minutes though. In the meantime, I was working on dishes and I just about have them finished. And then it's really just a waiting game until we have timers going off. All right, this is the first pot that's all done here. So I'm just going to turn off the heat. And then what I like to do is uncover it. And I'm just going to let this sit here for at least probably about 15 minutes or so. Just to give it some time to rest before I take those out and put them onto a double thick towel to cool overnight. Okay, it is 20 to 11 and it is just late and I'm pretty much done here for the evening. I'm going to get these out. I even have the lights turned down already in the house here, ready to go to bed. So I'm going to get them out just like I have the salsa here onto this double towel. And that is going to be it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more canning videos, I'm going to put a canning playlist at the end here for you to click on, and you can see other things that I have canned, which is pretty much going to be tomatoes, salsa, green beans, and a few other things because that's what my family likes.